Hello, guys, and welcome back to the With a Minute to Go podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you do enjoy it, and turn notifications on so you don't miss a thing. You can also find us on Spotify by typing in With a Minute to Go or by clicking the link on our social medias, Twitter and Instagram at WAMTGPod. Now, last week, we brought you episode 1 of the 5-year rebuild, looking at Arsenal, and we've had some positive feedback from that. So we'll definitely be carrying on that with the next instalment coming next week. Anyway, this week, we're going to have a look at the Champions League quarterfinals. 4 big games over the last 2 nights, lots of talking points, a bit of controversy, so it should be an interesting discussion. As ever, my trusty co-host Matt is with us. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Yeah, good to have you with us. Unfortunately, the last 2 weeks, they've been pretty manic. So in terms of guests, we haven't been able to get anyone involved. I'm sure over the next few months when things do begin to die down, we'll get people back on. I know Sam's interested, Tom's interested. We've got a few other better names lined up as well. So hopefully we can get them back on. Right, we'll get straight into things. The first game we'll be looking at is Real Madrid versus Liverpool. And my notes have just gone down. So let's have a look. Real Madrid came on top with a 3-1 win. Pretty complete performance, I think, from Madrid. Matt, what was missing for Liverpool, in your opinion?
The defence.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I'll be honest. My week hasn't really allowed me to watch many full games, but I've sort of caught up on some extended highlights. I was sort of tuning in via social media while the game was going ahead. Obviously, people would have seen the errors for the goals, particularly the second and third goals, which are very much individual mistakes. I was very impressed with what I saw of Real Madrid, and I think there's been a lot of talk that maybe they aren't their former selves. They haven't got Ronaldo anymore. Obviously, Gareth Bale is now over here, and heavily reliant on Benzema, who seems to be doing really well for him. But you still reel off some of the names in the team. There's still a lot of quality there. I think obviously they were without their first choice centre halves as well, so that was an interesting one where Liverpool are going to go and take it to them. No Ramos and no Varane either. But yeah, look, I think Madrid were well worthy of the 3-1 win, and they capitalised on mistakes. So I think it's really sound nicely for the second leg.
Yeah, just quickly, I'll go through the game anyway. First thing I picked out was that shaky defence, like you've mentioned. Kabak and Trent, in particular, both gave away some pretty golden chances. I think the one Kabak gave away, Asensio put it just wide, and then obviously Trent with a nice little cushion header for the second goal into Asensio. Obviously, those 2 first half goals from Madrid were massive. Vinicius, excellent control, lovely finish after a floated ball over the top from Kroos. Salah obviously got one back early in the second half, which I think that was a key away goal for Liverpool. I think that's much needed if they do want any chance of progressing. Liverpool, obviously, with so many memorable Champions League nights at a packed Anfield, I think, but obviously with no fans, their recent league form, I feel like that fear factor has been taken away from Anfield. Do you think there's any way back for them in the second leg?
I think there is, and there always will be, especially when you're talking about Liverpool and Champions League. But you're right in what you say. The fact that there is no fans going to be there. You look at their recent home form; it's been particularly poor. So you give Real Madrid a massive chance, and I think if it's a packed Anfield and it's a big Champions League night, and Liverpool aren't in such terrible home form that they've been in, you do fancy them to overcome that, even with the 2-goal deficit there is. The away goal is massive. It keeps the tie alive for me. We've seen Liverpool with some unbelievable comebacks over the year, but I think if that's 3-0, I think that's done and dusted. But Liverpool will create chances. The question will be, are they good enough to keep them out of the other end? And on the showing from the other night, then you say no, and that Real Madrid will get chances. And look, we could talk about the errors. Alexander-Arnold with the second goal. Alisson, I think, should have done better with the third goal, personally. But, he's still got to be clinical. He's still got to be on hand to take those chances. And that's what Real Madrid did. I think it's going to be tough for Liverpool. I wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting here in a couple of weeks' time and Liverpool are in the because I think they've definitely got the attacking talent to do it. But but I'd imagine Real Madrid will probably score just because of the defensive frailties at Liverpool at the minute. And like you say, the fact that there's no crowd, I think if I'm a Real Madrid player or a Real Madrid fan, I'm feeling quite confident going to second leg.
Yeah, definitely. For me, if Madrid do nick a goal early on, it's game over. Liverpool are going to need quite a few goals to give themselves a look in. The other point sort of going into that game was the fact that Firmino didn't start. Jota came in ahead of him. Do you think that may be more of a regular fixture going forward?
I think so. I think if they're not going to be able to get all four of them in the team, I think unfortunately Firmino is probably the one to miss out. We saw Jota and the effect he had when he come on at the Emirates last weekend. I think he's been a fantastic signing. When a team wins the league, it's always interesting to see what they bring in the summer and how they go and try and strengthen a team that is, the best team in England. All right, we know how Liverpool have gone this year, and a lot of that is down to injuries and missing personnel. But he's been the one bright spark for me. Done well at Wolves, but I think question mark whether he could step up. But I think he's been fantastic for him, and he adds something different. He scores goals, but he also got a lot of other attributes to his game. So, he's been really good for him. Firmino gets probably a hard deal because he doesn't score many goals. But he obviously had a vital part to play in especially in last season and the link up with Mane and Salah, and they do the lion's share of the goal scoring. But yeah, Jota, if I'm Liverpool manager at the minute, he's getting in my team 100%.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think while Mane and Salah were firing, obviously those 2 years, they won the Champions League 2018-19 and then obviously unbeaten until February and won the league quite comfortably last year. I think you can probably just about get away with not contributing too much in the goals category. This year, obviously, they struggled defensively, and then that sort of starts to highlight. Obviously, Salah's been pretty good this year. I think he's the top goal scorer in the league, actually. Mane has been great, and then Firmino, not great. Jota came in, obviously, in the summer and started really well, got quite a few goals. I remember he scored one against Arsenal as well. So, yeah, for me, going forward, I think he'll be a regular in that Liverpool team over Firmino, whether that be wide or down the middle. I think he can do both. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from him so far. We talked a lot about Liverpool. I think it's obviously worth mentioning just how good Madrid were, and especially in the attacking line. In particular, there's been a lot of talk around Vinicius Jr. I've heard some rumours Zidane isn't really a fan of him, and he's been pretty inconsistent as well from what I've heard this year in the league. However, last night I do think he showed, or 2 nights ago even, a glimpse of just how good he really can be. Going forward, do you think maybe Vinicius could be a part of that Real Madrid resurgence?
If he plays like he did the other night, then more often than not, then he certainly will be.
Yeah.
Big boots to fill, isn't it? The sort of players that Real Madrid have had in that attacking area, forever it seems. And it's always going to be tough to come in and do that. So he's still young. I think he's only 20 still. I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. So, what an opportunity he has going forward in a big club, and obviously he's going to be playing regularly because that is what they have going forward. So no, I think it's up to him. I think if he can push himself on, and there's obviously talent there. He took his goals really well. Young players are going to be inconsistent. That's the thing of a young player. But he's got a lot of experience around him. Look at Benzema, Cruz, Modric, Ramos, Varane, the experienced players in that team. Courtois. To work with him. Okay, not all attacking players, but I think what I saw the other night was a really good player and maybe a run of games. Obviously, we don't see as much of the Spanish league anymore with the TV and whatnot, and not being on so often. So the best chance is the Champions League to really see him, and it's the top stage. It is the top stage. So look, I think he's got a great opportunity to do it. I don't know what the finances are of Real Madrid going forward anymore, whether they can manage to lure anyone across that's going to come in and be wow factor for him this summer. But if not, then, he's a young kid, but, looks a real prospect.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, any younger player coming into a side is going to struggle, but especially, obviously, he came in as a left-sided player. Ronaldo went out at the same time. Huge boots to fill and pretty much impossible for whatever he was, 18, 19-year-old. So, yeah, if he does perform as well as he did a couple of nights ago, a little bit more often, well, for me, he's right up there with some of the best. A couple of great goals for Real Madrid. And finally, before we do move on, I want to know who you're backing for the tie.
Madrid, just on the fact that Liverpool and Anfield isn't the same. Any other season, especially the last two that have gone, I'd have 100% thought Liverpool were going to claw that back. But off the basis of the other night and what we've seen in recent times, I'm going to say Madrid.
Yeah, I think you look at, obviously, I think it was 3 years ago now at Anfield, and the 4-0 win against Barcelona. You add in those fans, those unbelievable fans, and you add in an inspired team, a team in great form, and obviously going well in Europe. This year, both of those things have been missing, unfortunately. So yeah, I've got to go with Madrid as well. Right, we'll move on then to the other game played on Tuesday night. Man City hosting Borussia Dortmund. A match surrounded by controversy after, in my opinion, a terrible refereeing decision, denying Jude Bellingham an undoubtedly fair goal. Man City started in typical dominating fashion, deserved the early lead, lovely cutback from Mahrez and finished by De Bruyne. Then came that moment, Bellingham challenging Ederson, who attempted to control the ball and volley it away. Bellingham came in, nicked in front of him, put it into an open goal. Ref blew up, and somehow VAR did not overturn it. We've talked about this before, VAR, and again, it's come in and made the wrong decision, clearly. Not much really happened for the rest of the game. Dortmund's Royce came in, 84th minute equaliser. I think going forward, that'll be huge for them, even though Foden obviously got the winner in the 90th minute. That away goal for any team, I think, is vital. I think if you'd asked them before the game, would you rather a 1-0 or a 2-1, every team will take that 2-1 and that away goal back to the Signal Iduna Park. Now, the key moment for me that could have swayed the match to Dortmund was obviously that refereeing decision. Everyone can see it was a fair goal. Obviously, VAR didn't overturn it. I have no idea how they didn't. I'm not sure what you're going to say about this, but I think this incident goes further than maybe just a poor refereeing decision. In my opinion, I think goalkeepers are maybe too overprotected, not just at the highest levels, but in all levels of football. I think you see it most often on set pieces, corners, free kicks, when a player even just brushes past a keeper, and a referee usually blows up for a foul. Do you think maybe that had any impact on the Ederson Bellingham decision, or was that just a one-off terrible refereeing decision?
I think the reason VAR didn't get involved is because he'd already blown his whistle before he'd scored. So I think the main issue here is bad refereeing. Whether he sees the foul or not, he's got to accept that it's a goal-scoring opportunity. It couldn't be more of a goal-scoring opportunity. It's an open goal, and he needs to let the ball go in the goal before he makes the decision and blows his whistle. If he then says free kick, VAR could intervene and say, actually, no, it wasn't a foul, and that goal would get given. So that's the issue there. That's why VAR couldn't get involved. So it's a massive error from the referee. He must have been so convinced it was a foul. I think, to be fair, from certain angles, it kind of looks that way, but it clearly isn't. I think you said earlier, Bellingham challenging Ederson. Well, it actually was the other way around. Ederson actually challenged Bellingham. Bellingham played the ball. Ederson fouled him. If Bellingham goes down there, it's a red card, and because he was fouled. So it's just a really poor decision. You can't say much more than that in terms of protective goalkeepers potentially, because he's received the ball outside the box and he's assumed he's been fouled. But again, I think it's just a really poor decision. And the referee, if he holds on for a second more, Bellingham puts the ball in the net and then he blows the whistle and he believes it's a foul, that's fine, because VAR will tell him it's not a foul. But I don't think that was the only one, because there was the penalty a little bit later that was overturned for Manchester City, where I think it was Rodri had gone down as if he's been kicked in the head, and it was supposedly a high foot, and the replay first of all shows he wasn't kicked in the head, and it certainly wasn't a high foot, and the referee just had one that night. I think it is a massive moment. It is an absolutely massive moment. The goal, it changes everything. It obviously brought them level on the night. It's another away goal. So look, I think there no fault of VAR, especially for that first one. He obviously got the penalty decision right, but even then, I think the referee was, he wasn't very good at communicating. I saw lots of people moaning about how he dealt with that situation. So, and then I don't know if you saw the linesman after the game trying to get Haaland's autograph. I just
really, right?
He cornered him in the tunnel and he wanted his autograph. I just, you scratch your head. It's just the unprofessionalism of it, and it probably sums up the performance of the officials on the evening.
Yeah, 100%. I had absolutely no idea about that. But just going back to that decision regarding Bellingham and Ederson, and obviously I think it's quite clear the referee had a stinker. I think he will hold his hands up after looking back and say, yeah, it was the wrong call. But again, I just want to go a little bit further into that goalkeeper protection thing. Do you think maybe that whistle did go early because there is a seed planted in his mind? If anything happens to a goalie, we blow up for fouls. Like I said, we see it at every level. You obviously see it with Woking, we see it in the Premier League. We see it all around, really. Do you think maybe that sort of came into the decision?
Possibly, but I generally believe it was he thought it was a foul. If you watch it back, Bellingham sort of his sort of studs are up trying to block the ball. Nothing more. He's put his foot there to block the ball and try and block the clearance. The fact of the matter is he's ended up kicking the ball and Ederson has actually kicked him. So the fact he's played the ball is good enough for me, and that's not a foul. Do goalies get protected? Sometimes, yes. I think, but I think people need to understand actually in that role, when they're going up and their eyes are on the ball, for example, and they're going to take a cross, they're thinking of nothing else but taking that cross. And if someone comes in and hits them and hits them at pace when they're trying to, balance themselves or take off it and be in the air, I think, that is a foul. I think, and I think some of them look soft, but actually, if you're in the air and you're jumping and someone pushes you, you can't go against that. That action and that movement now you've made is going to take you away from the ball. You can't impact that. You can't go against that when someone's pushed you and you're in the air. For example, look, there's other times we look at the Ederson one and I say 100% the wrong decision. Ederson's got extremely lucky, and that is with playing out and wanting to receive the ball. Me and the goalkeeper is they're going to play on the edge sometimes, and there's going to be a lot of risk.
Yeah. I sort of agree with you there. I think it does sort of come down to refereeing inconsistency, in my opinion, as well, because you see it at corners. Referees will blow up straight away, give free kicks, and the player has done nothing but just stand his ground. But then I can remember the restart football back in June when Morpay came out, smashed Leno, he had to go off injured, and nothing was done about it. So again, that inconsistency really needs to be sorted out. And I do see where you're coming from. Obviously, as a goalkeeping coach, those goalkeepers that do need to be protected, but I think there does need to be a fine line, and referees need to get better at judging that. Slightly off topic, the last couple of weeks, we've obviously talked about Haaland, and his agent has been flying around talking to a few different clubs, most notably Real Madrid and Barcelona have been in the news the last couple of weeks. Other names like Man City, Chelsea, Man United also in the mix. Who do you see him going to? Because obviously his dad played for City and Aguero departing this year. There's a vacancy in the number 9 position. But again, the other side of it is City have pretty much won the league without a striker. But again, the temptation of those big boys in Spain could be enough to sway him. So who do you think he'll go to?
I'd like him to come to the Premier League. And on a purely selfish note of watching, probably 5 or 10 years ago, I'd have not wanted him to come to the Prem because there's no chance of him going to Arsenal. But at the minute, the way Arsenal are going, he can come and play for Manchester City. That's no problem. They're no rivals of ours. So I would love to see him at Manchester City. The amount of goals he would score in that team would be unbelievable. I mean, there was one. I think he only had really one chance the other night, and he went through and he bashed Diaz off the ball. Probably the best centre back in England, and just wasn't sort of balanced enough just to lift it over Ederson, and that'd have been a fantastic goal. And we've seen him score a lot of goals. His numbers are insane. I think he is the hot property, and he's the one who's going to be the big move of the summer. I know we'll talk about another striker a bit later on. And also we bring Harry Kane into it as well. But for me, he is the one. He's got age on his side. He's fantastic goal scorer.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him in the Premier League. probably a few years ago, you'd have said, well, he'll definitely go to Spain, Barcelona or Real Madrid, pulling power. But I'm not so sure now. I'm not so sure. First of all, do they have the finances, and is there still that pull to go to Spain and play, or do people really want to come now to the Premier League? I think Chelsea could also be an option. I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up at Chelsea. I know that maybe he hasn't. Chelsea probably haven't been linked with him that heavily, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went there either. You know what they're like; they will splash the cash if they need to. But I think, Guardiola's come out and said that Man City cannot afford him, but I think it's sort of a bit of a match made in heaven. Like you said, his dad used to play there. I think it'd be a great fit.
Yeah, I think obviously that incident between his dad and Roy Keane has maybe ruled out Man United. But I'm just looking at his record now in the Bundesliga this year: 22 appearances, 5 assists, 21 goals. That is an unbelievable record. Obviously, you said he bullied Diaz off the ball. Sorry, for that chance against Edison. It was a cracking save. So, if he does come to the Premier League, I reckon he'll bag 20, 25 goals in his first year, and he could be one of the best. Anyway, we'll move on from that. Actually, no, before we do, I'll get who are you backing for the tie?
This is probably one of the toughest ones to call. It's certainly not over. Obviously, City getting that late goal is massive, massive, massive. But they have this thing about the quarterfinals and getting through to. They haven't managed it. It's under Guardiola. It's a massive thing for them. We talk about Haaland. Dortmund have got some quality there, and they could easily turn this tie on its head. I'm gonna go with Man City just about, because I think this will be the year they can get over the line. But it's going to be a tight game, really tight.
For me, this is it's definitely the hardest one to predict, because Dortmund got that away goal. I'm actually going to go with them. Like I've said, Haaland's this year, his record in Germany is ridiculous, and if he gets 2 or 3 chances against City, he'll definitely put 1 or 2 of them away. So yeah, I've got to go with Dortmund for this one. Obviously, if Man City do get an early away goal, that really does completely change the tie, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm going to go different to you. I'm going to go with Dortmund. Right, we've done 2 of the 4 games, so we'll move on to our weekly Premier League scout. And quickly, we'll have a look at last week's one. So I picked Timo Werner again. What a terrible pick. What was I thinking? Well, I mean, I don't think anyone saw that result coming. 5-2 at home to West Brom. A Sam Allardyce masterclass. And again, he's really done me in there, because I was genuinely hoping, maybe hoping, but I was expecting as well Werner to get a couple of goals. So, Matt, you went with Lacazette. Arsenal were absolutely horrendous. 3-0 loss at the hands of Liverpool. I was quite confident going into this one, even though Liverpool's away record was much better than their home record. However, we just really didn't start, and they popped it round and got the deserved 3-0 win. So, again, both of our players' teams got outplayed, and 2 terrible picks from us there. I think, Matt, maybe you should stick to the goalkeepers, because you've done 2, and they've both been good picks. Anyway, we'll move on to the scout for this week. Last week's player for me, West Brom's Matheus Pereira. Obviously, I've just touched on the Chelsea 5-2 game, and it was an absolutely fantastic performance from him. Instrumental. Got the first goal to put him back on level terms, and then he got the second just in the bottom corner against Mendy. Real no one is there. I think he's a special player. But Saturday, he really proved that. It was a great performance from him, and at the end of the day, I'm pleased to see West Brom getting a win that I think Allardyce much needed. Matt, who was your player?
Yeah, just touching on West Brom, there's people saying, oh, maybe they're gonna, the great escape, and it would be the greatest escape, I think. I think they're 8 points off of Newcastle, but yeah, unbelievable result for them. My pick was Danny Ings. It's his first game back. He's been out injured for a little while. Goal and assist versus Burnley, his former club. A nice flick round the corner for the assist for Armstrong. They're 2-0 down. That makes it 2-1. Shows great strength and speed to beat Ben Mee to the ball, and then composure when he gets into the box. And that's something that you come to expect from him. Had a hand in the third goal too. Forces a great save from Pope, and Walcott and Redmond combined for the winner. So, massive win for them. They needed that win. Massive for him that he just hits the ground running again after missing the games. Obviously was injured, couldn't play in the international games as well. I've seen lots and lots of people talking about him being, should be a cert for the England squad. Now I'm not so sure. But what he does, he gives us something a little bit different. He has got pace, and he will get in behind him. And I think when he gets in front of goal, he does, he will put them away. So I think that was a massive moment for him, and he'll certainly want to kick on between now and the end of the season and make sure he's in that Euro squad.
Yeah, 100%. For me, Danny Ings falls into that unfortunate category. I think last year, a fantastic year, would have been, like you said, he's not at the moment, but he would have been a dead cert for the Euros, in fantastic form. This year, struggled with injuries. Obviously, he's come back, goal and assist, and, generally he's a very good player, but maybe that long injury list might cost him a place in the squad. For the upcoming week, I've gone with Jesse Lingard. I think it's a great chance for West Ham to show what they're really made of against the top four club. After that goal, obviously on Monday night against Wolves, I think it's another big chance for Lingard to shine and really prove and push his case for the Euros. So yeah, hopefully I don't jinx another player because I seem to be doing it all the time, really. But yeah, let's just keep our fingers crossed for that one. Matt, who have you gone with?
Yeah, well, we've got another West Brom player, Mbai Dieng, centre forward. Obviously coming in January, one of Allardyce's signings. He scored the 5th at Chelsea last week. But I've generally been impressed with his performances. I think he's got 2 goals. I think he scored, obviously, against Chelsea. I think he got another one earlier on against Man United. I think if West Brom have any chance, and, the slimmest 1 in a million chance, which they probably don't have, then they need to back up last week's result. And they must win this weekend. What a fantastic result last week. And, whatever happens, I think it'd be long in the memory of West Brom fans and all football fans, to go to Chelsea, under Thomas Tuchel, that don't concede goals and score 5. Southampton at home, which, we just touched on Danny Ings, but they've been up and down, mostly down in the last couple of months. It's certainly a game they have to win. They say if a team are going to pull off that miracle as such, or pull off that great escape, they need to have a big result or a shock result to get that going and start it off. And last week West Brom had that. So, it would be, if they can get another 3 points this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did, then we start asking questions, because the teams above them, Fulham and Newcastle, are not winning games. Fulham, I think, are 5 points clear of them, but West Brom have a game in hand. I think Newcastle are 8 points clear of West Brom, but can you see Newcastle winning many more games? Possibly not, although they were very good against Spurs at the weekend. So they need to back up last week if they've got any chance. And Dieng, someone who I like, he's a focal point of the team. He's an Allardyce player, in the air, physical. So I'm going to go for him this week.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. West Brom 8 points off safety still. I think that is a bit of a long shot. But you never know. You've got to start somewhere. And 5-2 away at Chelsea, you can't really ask for much more than that. So yeah, we'll see. Next week, we'll have a look at them again to see how we've done. Hopefully slightly better than this week. But we do tend to put the mockers on players. So yeah, we'll move on to the third quarterfinal. And the only game without an English club involved, which was Bayern versus PSG. And this game really didn't disappoint. For me, easily the best game to watch out of the 4. I'll run you through the game. Early strike from Mbappe, Neuer flat one in at the near post. Other than that, though, first half was all Bayern, and so many dangerous crosses and a few cracking saves from Navas. Most notably, there was one with Goretzka from close range with his feet from a header. PSG, though, still looking very dangerous on the attack. Ball broke to Neymar. From a corner, he picked out Marquinhos, who had all the composure of a centre forward as he neatly slotted home. But then he went off injured, and everything changed really, with a real flurry of both enforced and tactical changes for both sides actually. Goretzka and Sule went off, and then Choupo-Moting got one back just before the interval. Yeah, we'll talk about him in a minute. And then Muller slotted one home 15 minutes into the second half. And then PSG got another one, didn't they? Yeah, gosh. So those 3 away goals are obviously huge. I think without Lewandowski, Bayern do lack an obvious goal-scoring striker. Choupo-Moting just isn't really there, is he? So I think they'll struggle away from home without Lewandowski heading up that line. PSG, on the other hand, Mbappe looked absolutely sensational. Di Maria, he went off with a potential hamstring, so he might be fit, he might not be. And then Neymar, who's just come back from an injury, looked pretty inspired. So with that in mind, obviously they narrowly missed out in last year's final. Could you potentially see PSG going all the way to win it?
Yeah, why not? If they play like they did then. I think you've got to obviously take it with a pinch of salt. Bayern had a few out. Obviously, we talked about Lewandowski, but Gnabry didn't play either. Davis was on the bench, which was a bit of a strange one. I know he come on. There was a few missing. So maybe it wasn't Bayern's strongest team, but I think Bayern Munich are the strongest team in Europe. Them and Manchester City. I think probably player for player Bayern are. But if PSG knock them out, then that sends a big message to everyone around Europe. And Mbappe was just unbelievable. The pace, the skill, the composure, the finishing. He is so similar to Henry. I think I love watching him play. When you got some like him and Neymar playing together, it's frightening. Yeah. So, can they go all the way? Definitely. The semi-final, they will play, I can't think off the top of my head. They will play Man City or Dortmund in the semis. Okay.
Possibly. So that'd be a decent game, whatever happens.
I'm not sure off the top of my head without checking. But yeah, look, it's a fact to anyone. I think they've lost three times in 71 games at home.
Right. Yeah, right.
So for anyone to go there and get there, go there and take the win is fantastic.
No, I think the commentator mentioned whether it's just in Europe, I've not been a mark in the competitions, but that was their longest unbeaten home streak. So it's just been broken.
It's Porto or Chelsea versus. No, hang on. No, I'm wrong. It's not. It's Man City or Dortmund. Yeah, I was right.
Right.
So what a semi-final that could be. Manchester City and PSG, or Man City and Bayern Munich.
Whoever goes through there, I think it'll be a great game. Chelsea maybe got away with one there. The other thing I wanted to touch on, obviously, we've talked about that front three and Mbappe, especially, was fantastic last night. But the other big blow for PSG was Marquinhos going off injured with a groin injury. We've said how Bayern were missing their defensive players. Just how big of a blow will that be for PSG, missing their main man at the back?
Well, if he is out the second leg, then that is a big blow for him. And what they have to come in and replace him, I'm not so sure. You can see that he came off. They conceded 2 goals, so that I don't think it changed the wave of the game. You mentioned it earlier. Bayern Munich had a lot of the ball and a lot of opportunities, not necessarily clear cut, but half chances. And Marquinhos went off, and they were able to convert those. So, but go back to PSG. It just shows they were 2-0 up and in a great position. It goes back to Tuchel, which you're not surprised about because of the quality Bayern Munich have. And they bring on Thomas Muller. I think they brought on Thomas Muller. Wow, what a player to bring on.
Yeah.
He scores a great header. But PSG go again. They go again and Mbappe scores that great goal. The only concern from them is their manager's Pochettino. So maybe it's a semi-final and they're out. So let's see. I would love to see them in the semi-final. It'd be a great game against Man City. It would be. I'd really like to see them through, and I think they actually will go through this time. I know they had the famous Barcelona game where they were 4-0 up or from the first leg and managed to somehow, I don't know how, lose the game 6-1 in the return game. Crazy.
Unai Emery in charge that one.
Well, there you are then. But
Yeah.
I think this could be their year where I know they made the final last year, but if they beat Bayern and they get to the final where they've had to beat Man City, then I fancy them to win it.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see whether it is the Tottenham jinx or it is just Pochettino who can't win the trophies. I'm hoping that Pochettino does go on and win it, or at least get in the final with PSG, because whoever they play, I think it'll be a cracking game. So before we do move on, I'm assuming you're going with PSG for the tie, but I'll ask you anyway. Who do you reckon?
I want PSG to win. I wouldn't. Again, what I said about Bayern Munich, I would not be surprised if they turned it round and they created a lot of chances. But I'd really like to see PSG in the semi-final.
Yeah, same. I've got to go with them because I think those away goals were just an absolute killer. 3 away goals. I mean, 2 might have been able to claw it back, but 3, and then you had another few on with Mbappe and whatever at home. But then again, obviously, if Marquinhos does miss out, then and maybe Lewandowski does come back, I'm not sure what his situation is. Then it could be a completely different game. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching that second leg. So the final game of the 4 was Porto, who were hosting Chelsea. I'll say hosting, but they were playing it in Seville. So, due to the travel restrictions in Portugal, so the game was played neutrally, and maybe that didn't have a great effect on Porto. Obviously, off the back of that heroic extra time win at Juventus, so I was hoping for bigger things from Porto. But obviously it was not to be. I think it's worth saying they were missing their key man, Sergio Oliveira. I think it was pretty vital in that Juventus win. So that was a big blow for them. And really, as I thought would happen, Chelsea were comfortable throughout. First half goal from Mason Mount, cracking little turn and finish. Porto had a few chances. Overall, Mendy wasn't worked too much at all, really. Chilwell got the second for Chelsea in the 85th minute in Fernando Torres style. I think it was mentioned on Twitter, to seal the leg and to seal the toe, really, in my opinion. Just slightly going back towards the Premier League with Chelsea, it's still looking like they're good for a top 4 finish after Tottenham's pretty embarrassing slip up at Newcastle. Obviously still in the Champions League, and looking like they should be through to the semi-finals. Even with the other big hitters, like we've just mentioned, Bayern, Real Madrid, PSG potentially going through, is a case for them to go all the way as well?
No. No. Because of the draw, the side of the draw they're on, they've got a chance, haven't they?
Yep.
Like we said, probably it's the tie is all but over. It'll be some turnaround if Porto can turn this around, and then Madrid or Liverpool awaits. I mean, if it's Liverpool, then they certainly won't fear that, because it's a team that obviously they play this year and they know that have not been in the greatest of forms. It's one for. If it is a semi-final, it's Chelsea-Liverpool. It goes back to those, the semi-finals of the early 2000s. I think about the Luis Garcia ghost goal, but Chelsea will fancy their chances for sure. And I say under Tuchel, defensively sound now, barring obviously as long as they don't have to play West Brom, they'll be fine. Or it could be Real Madrid, and again it'd be a tough game, but it's on the easier side of the draw. You'd rather play Real Madrid or Liverpool at the minute than play Manchester City or PSG, or Bayern Munich. So look, in terms of that, the side of the draw they're on is great for them. I think all Chelsea fans will agree with that. They're probably not to the level of those sides we talked about, the Man Cities and PSGs, but once you get to a final, you've got a great chance. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea did make the final this year, based on their defensive stability. Just going back on the game, I think they were quite comfortable. I think probably what I saw of it, Porto had some half chances. Mendy made a couple of saves. There was one he had to tip over the bar as well early on, from a corner. But the 2 goals were bad mistakes for me. The goalkeeper's got to do better on the Mason Mount one. He goes with his foot. It's quite a lazy foot out. He could definitely save it. The second one, the right backs, Chilwell, good thinking to get inside him, but terrible from the right back. And obviously he's in at goal from 30 yards and can dribble around the goalie. So, they capitalised well on 2 individual errors. Before the draw, you'd have said Porto, although beating Juventus, are the weakest team left in the competition. I think they proved it the other night. So I think the tie is all but over. I think Chelsea can get, go 1-0 in front I think they're pretty much there in the semi-finals, and like I said, they'll fancy their chances for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Porto don't really offer that obvious threat up front. I think they've got Marega, and he missed a couple of chances, but really, it didn't really cause too much danger to Chelsea. Obviously, lucky with the side of the draw they're on, and if they did come up against a Dortmund or a City or Madrid, basically any of the other teams that were in the competition, I would have fancied them. So yeah, there is a chance they get to the final. Personally, I wouldn't say that. I'd much prefer to see a PSG. PSG Madrid maybe final. That'd be a decent one. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Chelsea under Tuchel. Obviously, they only conceded 2 in the last 14 before Saturday's home battering against their nemesis West Brom. I think looking to the future, if they can get the likes of Werner, Ziyech, and Havertz firing, do you think maybe they could be at the top with the likes of City and maybe United?
I think so, and I think you make a great point. All 3 of those have not really hit anywhere near the heights that you would expect them to, or they have certainly at their previous clubs. And Chelsea's still doing well this year. You know, everyone sort of was a bit shocked with the change of manager, but it's obviously had a desired effect. Defensively, they're sound now. You know, quality going forward in abundance. You know, and like we said, those 3 really haven't hit anywhere near the heights that you'd expect, particularly Werner, particularly Havertz. You know, and you can give them a bit of time, especially Havertz, a young player, you know, 21, to get and adapt to playing in the Premier League and playing in the Champions League. So if they can, then they certainly will be a threat to Manchester City and to Man United.
Yeah, for me, I didn't watch too much of Havertz before he came to Chelsea. I watched a lot of Ziyech in that unbelievable Ajax Champions League run, and then obviously Werner for Leipzig was coming through and very impressive. If they can get them going, then I think they'll be on a different level to most teams. Right, before we do finish on this one, who are you backing for the tie? I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I think Chelsea will be comfortable.
Yep, same. Unfortunately, I've got to go with that. Right, so that's it really. It's been a much shorter episode, but I hope you have enjoyed this week. Like we said, we'll be back next week with a rebuild. So make sure to check the Instagram. We'll put a poll out for that, so you can vote for your teams. Matt, again, it's been good to have you on, mate. Like I've said, we'll hopefully have some more guests on when we aren't as busy. There are some more European matches tonight in the Europa League. Obviously, Arsenal hosting Slavia Prague, and then Spurs. Oh no, they're not in it anymore. Right, so that's pretty much it, guys. Make sure to stay safe and keep talking football. Cheers.